Wow, it's massive.
It's harder than ever to get onto the housing ladder, so a few brave, ordinary people are resorting to the seemingly impossible.
Oh, look at that.
Building their own home from scratch for less than £100,000.
If you're being told like that, it's not really enough money. But that's all the money we can find.
I'm Kieran Long, and with architect Piers Taylor, we're coming to the aid of 6 families attempting this toughest of challenges.
Yesterday was probably the worst weather we've had. We can't afford to stop.
We'll try to help them with design dilemmas.
It could be really harsh and cold if you're not careful.
Challenge them to think bigger.
I'm not seeing anything like this before.
And search out innovative solutions that make the most of their meagre budgets.
Ooh, look at that.
We'll all be pushed to the limit.
We are in a bad situation, for sure.
As we attempt to turn these ordinary self-builds into outstanding homes.
It's really important that we all realise what we're building.
This time, Marcus and Sholto attempt to build an enormous home in the wilds of Scotland.
I think that's only the first load.
With a budget already pushed to the limit, will they welcome new ideas?
How do you feel about opening up the ceiling?
Can they agree?
You're saying that I want to do this and I want to do that.
And will brave ideas backfire?
That's Boeing in the middle there. I wouldn't hope.
No.
Marcus and Sholto have been a couple for over a decade. It was while on holiday from their home in the south of England that they decided the Scottish Morayshire countryside was where they wanted to spend the rest of their lives.
What we love about this area is it's beautiful. Taking our dog for a walk, you look around and you just stare at what we're actually living in. It's absolutely amazing.
But having searched for a home with generous spaces for entertaining, they couldn't find anything on the market that fitted the bill.
We're not a traditional family. We don't need the typical 3-bedroom detached house with bathrooms galore. We need something that suits us, that friends and family are comfortable to come and visit.
So they've decided to build the dream home they promised themselves while going through difficult times.
I found out that I'd got end-stage renal failure, and I said to Sholto at the time, run for the hills, because we'd not been together all that long, and we knew what the outcome was going to be. It was going to be dialysis, maybe transplant in the future. But no, you didn't, did you? You said, no, stick with you. 2006, I had a kidney and a pancreas transplant. It just gave me a whole new release of life. To have that chance to actually lead a normal life and also give you the gumption and the attitude and the confidence to try new things.
Using the proceeds from the sale of their home in Sussex, they've bought a £90,000 plot of land. It's in a rural location 45 miles from Inverness. Here they're planning a total change of lifestyle.
We're still young enough to work, but the idea was to get more of a work-life balance. The aim is to be mortgage-free.
The sale of their home, plus savings, has given them a budget of £100k for the build, plus a £15k contingency.
We've got enough money to hopefully build the house.
Sholto's going to project manage the house and be as hands-on with the build as he can be, so hopefully that's going to save us a hell of a lot of money.
They've already spent £12,000 on the groundworks. They hope the single-storey house they're building on top will perfectly suit their needs.
Our main reason for having a bungalow is for the dog. As she gets older, we didn't want her to have stairs to cope with.
Or me.
Or him.
To keep costs down, Marcus and Sholto have chosen an off-the-peg timber frame kit house. The front facade has a gable-ended double garage and an ornate porch leading to an octagonal hallway. Access to the main living area is through double doors. The open-plan room has standard ceiling heights and finishes and will act as the living, dining and kitchen area. Access to the 4 bedrooms and the bathrooms is back through the hallway. It's a big and ambitious house, but I currently fail to see the touches that make it distinctly one for them. The whole kit is costing £54,000 and is starting to arrive on site.
Hi, do you want to start bringing it up the hill now, please?
Sholto has never built a house before.
My God, look at this. Yep, that's quite a lot of house there. Bloody hell. Yeah, that's quite a lot there, isn't it? Didn't expect that. I think that's only the first load.
They've invested in a high-quality kit, which is almost a job lot. It includes the frame and many other parts, which should make budgeting the build far easier.
This is everything I saved, well, myself and Marcus have saved and earned and worked for the last 11 or so years. This is probably about, just under a quarter of all that now sitting on the back of the lorry.
But having selected a design that would perfectly suit a typical family, they're in danger of ending up with a home that doesn't suit them. Piers needs to interrogate the design.
It's like a big bit of IKEA furniture, isn't it? Yeah, I suppose it comes with a big Allen key to put it all together.
Hi Piers, good to see you. For Marcus and Sholto, this is what they call their kind of forever home. There's a lot riding on this emotionally, and they want it to be special, but do you think there's just too much house here for it to be special?
I do. It's a 3-bathroom, 4-bedroom house with a double garage. It's vast. It's too complicated. It's trying too hard, you know. So you come into a little octagon. It looks like a sort of gazebo plonked in the middle of this. Immediately there's a couple of grand taking out those doors and walls and so on.
It's a pretty mean ceiling height. I think it says 2.4 here, but you know, it seems pointless to build a building of this scale and not have some generosity vertically.
Absolutely. Simplicity is the main thing. Reduce the changes in materials, reduce the complexity of the building, take out some of these doors internally, and make it a calmer building. We need to get them to realise that this could be a much better building. And I think if he's really ruthless and really clever, this could be done for £100,000.
Sholto will do most of the work himself, but he can't erect the frame without a joiner. And already there's a risk of spiralling costs.
We pay on an hourly rate because he's not on a fixed price. He didn't want to work on a fixed price. He didn't even want to give us a quote. He just wants to work on an hourly rate. 13, 14, 15 is the garage.
And with a house of this size, materials not in the kit will be expensive.
Just listen to a few drawings.
But whatever the pressures, Sholto is fulfilling a lifelong dream.
Sholto's always wanted to build his own house.
I have sketchbooks full of houses from when I was as a teenager. Architecture is always fascinating.
Planning rules mean changing the exterior now is both costly and time-consuming. But there are still areas where Piers may be able to steer them away from a conventional home towards something more contemporary. Sholto's been immersed in the design process for months, so Piers may have a battle on his hands.
It's a really good idea to use to make a model, and immediately I want to dive in and make changes.
Piers suggests they should rethink the number of bedrooms and remove the hallway, as both are reducing the generous open-plan space they could have.
This is potentially a really clear and simple big barn-like space, and you're compromising it, I think, by putting these walls in that volume. And I think as a key move, that wall needs to come back to here.
Moving the wall back, fine, this leaves this hallway that we don't need.
To me, it would make more sense as well, because that living area would come out, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But his biggest alteration tackles that bog-standard ceiling.
I think it could be really amazing to live with these truss rafters running through there and expose them. Nowadays, all buildings are so sanitised and cleaned from all that interesting stuff. So if you've got structure, why wouldn't you want to see it?
The roof, I can understand it,
but let's look at it. So that's the space in there that you got, okay? But you could have a space that was, like that.
Yeah. It's more airy.
My question to you is, if you're resisting it, is it a nicer space with that, like that, or not?
it's a nicer space. I agree with you there. It's
Okay, stop there. So why wouldn't you want to make that change?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Exposed truss rafters would be so unusual and so provocatively different. Really, really contemporary.
Piers's alterations could transform this home. Removing the ceiling would have a cost attached, but will greatly increase the sense of space in their open-plan living area. It would prevent the interior they've chosen feeling like a standard home, and instead would be dramatic and individual. Removing the octagonal hallway and one of the bedrooms would maximise the usable living space and reduce costs by saving on walls and doors.
I don't think you need to make a decision today. I think you need to reserve judgment until you've gone to look at a couple of buildings that have something similar. Now, I think I need to leave you to just deliberate.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, pretty exciting stuff though.
Yeah, good, good.
As head of design and architecture at the Victoria and Albert Museum, I'm always trying to find the most remarkable new buildings in the UK. And I'm taking Marcus and Sholto 3 hours across Scotland to an amazing house, which I hope will show them how good theirs could be. So, here we are.
Wow.
This kind of beautiful faceted black thing. What do you make of that?
It's definitely striking in the landscape, isn't it?
It is incredibly.
This highly individual home is the Black House by Raw Architecture Workshop on the west coast of Scotland near Skye. A staircase takes you up to a breathtaking open plan space.
Wow.
So you start to see what it's all about up here, don't you?
Yeah, it's astounding.
The whole wall, the whole facade of this room, if you like, just throws you out into the landscape. It's the non-standard unpredictability of this room which makes it special. When you're up here, you realise you're in this double height space, and of course that's given to you by the fact that it's a completely truss-free volume. Black House cost £310,000 to build. A double height space without trusses is way beyond Marcus and Sholto's budget. But Piers's idea of exposing the trusses would help them create a similar sense of drama in their home.
It's beautiful. It just literally takes your breath away, especially compounded with the views and everything.
Sholto already has a huge job ahead, so he's in two minds about such a radical change of plan.
I do love it, but I don't know whether loving something, doing with something.
No, sure. But outside, he's quick to spot a trick with the cladding that'll help him make his money go further. Rather than one long length of timber for each strip, The black house repeatedly uses shorter ones, elegantly butted together, so no wastage.
Each one of those mice at a 45-degree angle, so when they meet, obviously the rain runs down, keeps a nice tight line, but you do get the horizontal lines in it, which they sort of could take away from the blandness.
Both Marcus and Sholto like the sleek, pared-back architecture and limited range of materials that lift this house beyond anything mass-produced.
The simplicity is beautiful.
I like the fact that I can't see the gutter.
You like that crispness?
I do.
Two materials and glass.
Yeah.
Openings are really simple. There aren't loads of colours, not loads of materials.
It's totally fitting for its surrounding. The starkness and the awesome scenery behind it makes that work.
Yeah. I think Marcus and Sholto have taken a lot from this house. They're really sophisticated about buildings. They look at them in a really interested, attentive way. I think this house has given them some serious thinking to do.
To actually see the vaulted ceilings, how simple it was, how it all came together, and it gave you that enormous sense of space and gave us an insight into what our house can look like.
It's too minimalist and white. For me, it's lovely, but love it, can't live with it.
With Marcus in favour of the high ceiling, but Sholto unconvinced, there's a critical decision still to be made. A choice either way will define their interior. It's November, and a month since the kit was delivered. With the basic framework up, Sholto is now working hard on the cladding. The challenge of building a huge house alone on a tight budget has become his day job.
Working on your own, it can take you 3 times as long to do a job because you sometimes need 2 pairs of hands. If I had a bottomless pot of money, then I'd have a labourer. But looking into how much a simple labourer now wants for a day rate, I think, hang on, that's a hell of a lot of money to pay someone for labouring.
Nearly 3/4 of the budget has already gone on foundations, the house kit and labour. With only £28,000 left to complete the entire build, Sholto knows he's got to penny pinch every step of the way. He budgeted £3,000 for cladding, but has cut the bill by £600 thanks to the method he saw at the Black House. Now every length of cladding is getting used thanks to mitering each joint.
The house's walls are 2.8, planks come in 4.8 or 3.2. So obviously you're going to have cut off, you don't want to waste it and just use full lengths of wood. As you can see, you've got the 45-degree angle for water to run down and won't penetrate behind it.
He's also struggling to make do without the right tools.
We were trying to do it with a jigsaw. The jigsaw was just not powerful enough, so we've got to get a circular saw, and renting a cordless one was an insane amount of money. If I wanted to hire one for a week, I may as well have gone out and bought one. So that's what I'll end up doing. Hunt around for the cheapest one I can find.
By December, the weather's taken a turn for the worse, and life on site is getting tougher and tougher.
I think we need some guttering. The problem with working with a nail gun that uses compressed gas is that though this is extremely flammable, being an aerosol, it freezes as well, and it takes a bit of time for it to warm up again, so you end up with one in your pocket, one in the gun, one in your other pocket. It's not even firing! By now we should be inside and plasterboarded and probably have a stove installed, which is what I wanted, so we could just work through Oh dear, that was a naive thing to think that it was actually going to go to plan.
Life isn't getting any easier. There's still no electricity on site, so the length of the day is seriously affecting progress.
At the moment, we're struggling with how many daylight hours. Sunrise at the moment is until just before 9 o'clock, and then the light starts going about 3 o'clock. About 4 o'clock it's virtually pitch black.
Today's a rare chance for Marcus to see progress in daylight. He's working full-time to support the build. They've cut any day-to-day living costs to a minimum. He's not as familiar with the build as Sholto.
Is that nice? Is it cashmere?
It's cashmere, yeah, pure cashmere. No, it's just glass. It's glass fibre.
They've engineered the roof trusses so they can be on show, but there's no definitive decision on whether to leave them that way. The pair have opted for Piers' other suggestions to make the open-plan living space more dramatic. They've had a rethink on the number of bedrooms and removed the octagonal hallway.
We do like the space. I mean, we always wanted a big space anyway. We went from originally from 4 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms and this whole space, which we really like.
Although he likes it, Marcus is worried.
The way I see it at the moment, it could become quite impersonal, it could be not homely, and I think that's one of the challenges we've got.
Sholto has a clear vision.
You have to think of it as a whole space rather than breaking it down into bits. I think what's going to work for it is actually using large format furniture. So a kitchen that is made up of probably 3 large shapes. I'm already working out layout of the kitchen because I'm going to want to make that all from scratch.
You're saying that I want to do this and I want to do that. The way you work, the way Sholto works, is he's here all the time, so he gets a feel for what's actually happening, and he's got a very creative mindset, and it all gets stored up, and eventually it will filter down to me.
No, it does.
And then we discuss.
I come to you with a solution rather than a suggestion. You see, because I've already thought about it.
Yeah, which is exactly the point I just made. Right, so yes, that's what normally happens.
It's an all-consuming build, and money is running desperately short. They've spent $86,000 so far. Scheduling problems mean Sholto's been forced to get an alternative roofer and electrician, costing $7,000 more than planned. The build will soon go over budget. Marcus and Sholto are really in the depths with their build now. They're immersed in it, and perhaps at a moment where it can be hard to get any perspective about design and what they're actually trying to achieve with this project. So I brought them to a place that I hope will kind of unlock that a bit and inspire them again. This is a building that has a volume inside, which is one large room, which is broken down and made subtle, made homely, if you like, in a variety of techniques. So I'm looking forward to showing them. Windmill Hill in Buckinghamshire was completed by Stephen Marshall Architects in 2011. It houses the archive of the Rothschild family. It's not a home, but for Marcus and Sholto, it's full of design lessons. So it's a beautiful space, just one very simple barn-like space. What do you think?
Absolutely love it.
I think the most striking thing, of course, about this room is this extraordinary roof, this triangular grid shell construction, which is supporting itself and allows it to be so open. I mean, obviously this is expensive, but nonetheless, what I really like about it is how these triangles form the whole sort of decorative order for the whole room.
I'm liking the motif that's used through the whole space.
Finding a simple motif and repeating it throughout the room makes the large space work as one. These tables are so beautiful, aren't they? Serious chunky bits of joinery, and these trusses, again with that triangle motif.
Even though this is an archive room, and the room does have a single function, by looking at it you also see, well, it's got a research area here, but you've also got sort of comfortable chairs if you actually want to sit and read. So it does still have a multi-functions in this room, and that's dictated by the furniture.
The thickness of those shelves, those are much more chunky than regular bookshelves, is consistent with the desk, which is even consistent with these big kind of triangular pieces in the glazing. So all of it is just one thing, gives it tremendous coherence. And I think here the effect is to take what is quite a big space and sort of somehow bring the scale down. You see that these are these large triangles, smaller ones in the roof, even smaller ones in the furniture, and gradually the scale of this space is brought down to human scale, which is in a way what you guys need too with your very large living space.
It's not intimidating, which it could have been.
I think seeing this building today has really shown us how an open plan space should flow from one area to the other, and how when you can still have different areas with different functions, but you're not separating them by decor or materials.
Rather than compartmentalising things into little boxes within a big box.
Our room's about that long.
I've been really excited about how Marcus and Sholto reacted to this building.
Yeah.
Marcus sometimes in this process has felt a little bit left out. In a way, I think it's kind of made him excited again about the process as a design process. It's inspired him, and he's clearly gone away with really high aspirations.
Once you've boxed it in like that.
Sholto has to find a way to achieve this within the level of resource and skill that he has himself. I mean, he is pretty on his own on this build, and I think that's going to be a real challenge, meeting Marcus's aspirations, and now heightened aspirations, with what is still a very tight budget. Back on site and 4 months into the build, Sholto has almost completed the mammoth cladding job. Money's tighter than ever, so Marcus needs to keep heading out to work, keeping him away from the site. Piers needs to help them come to some joint decisions.
I did throw a bit of a wobble a few weeks ago. I was actually rarely on site on the weekend, and I just looked around the house and I said to Sholto, I don't really feel part of this. I did feel so detached.
What was it in particular?
Everything.
The tendency when you're building a house physically yourself, as Sholto is just to put your head down and get on with it. I mean, you've got to be so focused on doing it. I mean, I've done it, and I remember when I did it, my wife felt like a widow. And from your perspective, things need to happen, you need to be in, and you just need to build it. And the kind of complexity of unpicking those decisions that on your own you can make quite simply is sometimes just too much, so it's a really curious thing.
Financial strain hasn't helped. The extra costs for the electrician and roofer, plus the water heater, stove and other essentials, has taken the spend to $110,000. They only have a meagre £5,000 contingency to finish everything. Every penny over that will have to come from Marcus's earnings, which are already stretched thin, or from savings set aside for their future. To make matters worse, they have mixed feelings about the porch that came with the house and for which they have planning permission.
I hate it. No, I don't hate it. I hate the amount of money it's cost to build, because it took a carpenter more than a day just to put the trusses up on that. It took a day to do the whole of the rest of the house. It took more work for them to tile it, and all because we weren't allowed to simplify the design.
Sholto's come round to the idea of exposed trusses in the main space, but now the strain on the budget means he's backtracking with a further compromise. Additional plastering and labour to help him complete the full-height ceiling will be £1,200. Desperate to eke out the £5,000 remaining in the contingency, Sholto plans to reintroduce a conventional ceiling over 2/3 of the space. Just the kitchen area will remain open to the rafters. Marcus isn't convinced it's the right decision.
I do think the amount of time and money we've actually invested to get to this stage, it would make sense to actually go the whole hog with it.
Piers sees the double-height ceiling as critical to the house's success.
You've got to hang on to the things that make your building what it is, that make it architectural at all costs, and banish the things that are less important. And for me, the most important thing in that house is that sense of space, and then the beauty of that structure, the quality of light that comes in and gives it that incredible grandeur. I think at this stage of a building, when money's tight and Sholto is just focused on doing his job, which is finishing the building, you just do what's available at a builder's merchants, and you go through the motion of just making a house that has conventional things in it. They really need not to do that. What we'd like to do is just focus on this bit here.
Piers' strategy is to persuade Sholto to go for the full-height ceiling and make savings elsewhere.
So what we want to do is see these trusses in this bit, and then we're going to paint them white and the walls white. So no small ask, I realise that, but I think it will be important to do. We'll see you in an hour and a half.
He asks the builders to plasterboard one corner and the full-height ceiling, so Sholto and Marcus can experience the finished effect.
The advantage of mocking something up is that you can really make a judgment about something that you can't do if you just talk about it, or even if you draw it. Seeing it shown in front of you, full size, full scale, with the actual light, the actual materials, the actual quality of space. I mean, there's nothing like that.
Piers also has an idea for a low-cost design motif that will unify the big space. He suggests they make window reveals from chunky timber rather than plasterboard to echo the roof trusses.
This, in a way, is probably more expensive than just plastering into a window reveal, but actually it transforms a building.
I like the way it frames the window.
Yeah.
And it actually brings out the window more.
It does.
And then by its very design, it's also like seeing a picture through the actual window. I absolutely love it. I like the fact. I wouldn't have thought of doing that. Although I'll leave that to Sholto anyway.
Yeah.
Marcus is really positive about Piers' input. But having worked so long and hard on the build, Sholto is finding it harder to take.
No, I don't think Piers is actually criticising. I think he was coming in with a fresh pair of eyes, seeing the space for the first time, but at the same time you feel almost like your legs have been kicked out from underneath and you've got to claw your way back up again. So it's deflating. When someone does that to you, it can feel a bit deflating.
I can see that this testing of your conviction and decision making is pretty tricky for you, but in a way what I would hope it would do at best is make your design better. You know, I mean, which bit of it has been most challenging, do you think?
The whole questioning, not your questioning, my own questioning of my ideas and are they still valid. It's good to be challenged because it makes you think, but when you haven't been challenged, you always get set in stone.
The single defining characteristic of this building, if you follow through with this ceiling, this vaulted roof, this exposing of these trusses, will be extraordinarily dramatic.
As work on the mock-up continues, Piers turns his attention to finding ways to save money in the rest of the living space and get them to agree on layout.
I think we're looking at three primary functions within that space, being cooking, eating, living.
But then we also want to go against convention a bit and have within those spaces, like for example the kitchen area, also an area where we can get together and relax. Then within the living area, you know, again, when we can have, say, a dining table or something, so just all overlap.
The only fixed elements are a stove and a kitchen island. The island could be a critical area for recouping some of the cost of opening up the ceiling. Sholto is interested in making it out of concrete to match the floor, but nervous about the design and technique.
Well, we've talked about it quite a bit actually, haven't we? At one stage we were thinking we could do a concrete pour, which we just, I think it might be with the floor. I think it might be a bit concrete, a bit too much.
My prejudice would be that it would be concrete, but you know, because it's so cheap, it's so easy, it's so beautiful, it's so versatile, it's so durable.
My idea was the National Theatre, wasn't it? The concrete texture in that, make a form for it, pouring it, and then using the slightly dulled larch from the concrete actually as another part of the kitchen.
I've seen that done. Really fantastic. I feel though we should turn this way and look at you and ask you, Marcus, your feelings about this.
I'm going to make a bold statement now. We are going to use a form made out of larch wood. We're going to pour the concrete in it, and that's going to be it, because I love the sound of that.
A self-built concrete island could be very cheap to make, while still giving the kitchen a custom-made feel. But more than anything, it'll be the decision about the full-height ceiling that will define this house. It's time to see if Sholto is persuaded it's worth the extra cost.
So this is now a finished bit of building, which I think looks pretty amazing.
Wow. Starting to notice detail that you hadn't even thought of before.
You know, the truss is actually more defined because you've got all the business of the different coloured woods, the OSB, and everything else behind it.
Having now seen this, it makes me 100% aware that it is right to make a sacrifice and get this completely open and finished like this.
From this point back, all that wood had been cut off from us. You know, the big win here is those east-facing roof lines that will really animate that space, even when you're down this end.
The chunky window reveals get a thumbs up too.
You've led us in the right direction and actually made us see our priorities.
Marcus, you told me earlier that you don't really feel or haven't felt part of this interior yet, but coming up here in the daylight and seeing a bit of this building finished, how do you feel about it now?
To be perfectly honest, it just sort of takes your breath away.
With the joint decision made to spend the extra on the full-height ceiling, a concrete kitchen island is a good way to save a substantial amount of money, but only if Sholto gets it just right. I've invited Sholto to look at London's South Bank. Though it definitely divides opinion, it's an amazing testament to the creativity that can be expressed in concrete. The reason I want to bring Sholto here is because it's a place that shows the full range of possibilities of concrete. I mean, it is brave of you to tackle concrete. It's not a material that's that popular in this country with a lot of people. What do you think about it?
I always wanted to do something once, and And I'm not meaning that as in try it once, I mean actually do it once, and that's it. That should be enough to last. And I think concrete is a material that does last, and you can see that from the buildings here.
Concrete was chosen as the dominant material for these 1960s additions to the Festival of Britain site. It unifies the range of buildings and reflects their urban surroundings. It's amazing here, you're just totally surrounded by concrete, but you start to see the care with which this is all cast and made. And 3 joiners' workshops on site created the wooden formwork. Much of the concrete was then poured in situ. The patterns remain today.
Where it hasn't weathered, you can still see the texture that was originally there.
Yeah, it's very, very precise. You start like these planks, you know, where these boards have been cast against. They're precisely measured in proportion to the depth of the beam. And I really love that care and attention. I mean, in a way, when you see concrete looking like this, it's really more about carpentry than it is about concrete.
It's almost all down to the preparation work here, and the final action is the actual pour, and then the revelations and the finger crossing and praying that must go into taking off the form.
The South Bank Centre's Hayward Gallery, Queen Elizabeth Hall and Purcell rooms are made of 27,000 cubic metres of concrete. As well as concrete poured on site, there are precast panels made of Cornish aggregate with white cement. This stuff is so nice, isn't it? It's extremely rough, these precast panels. It's almost like a kind of very rough pebble dash, but it's got a beautiful texture though, and these little sparkly bits of mica in these stones do pop out, don't they? Look at this piece though. I mean, this is a kind of a goalpost type construction, pretty straightforward, beautifully cast, and with an aggregate with lots of, when you start to look closely at it, there's lots of different colours, and there's quite a lot of depth to it, doesn't it? I mean, it's much more beautiful than you might think at first glance. Yeah. And then the way it's cast, you know, with these lovely chamfered corners. When you're going in a doorway, you don't want to knock yourself on a sharp corner.
It's something I was concerned about. Obviously, having a kitchen island, you're going to do the same. You're going to walk past it.
Yeah. So maybe a chamfer corner might be a solution to that. What about these surfaces? Because when you see inside here where it hasn't been weathered, it still has all of that quality of wood. It's so beautiful, isn't it, this?
Absolutely, it's lovely. This is the look that I want to go for. We're going to be using the larch that we've used on the outside of the house, and I want to use that as the exposed bits, the bits you're actually going to see. I want to use that to make the mould with. This is very similar to hopefully how ours will turn out. Give me plenty of things to think about with what I want the finished result to be, but also what I'm going to use to achieve it. It's all got to be considered, experimented, agreed upon, and then done. Being concrete, once it's set, that's it. The only way of getting it out is a sledgehammer and wheelbarrow, so that does sort of fill me with a bit of dread.
Despite his trepidation, Sholto presses ahead with formwork for the kitchen island. As on the South Bank, the idea is to let timber create textures in the concrete. Today is his first ever concrete pour.
Most nervous day of the build, to tell you the truth. This needs to be rolled out here. So I'll do it.
Marcus is getting a rare opportunity to help.
As an observer in my own house, it's looking fantastic.
Any mistakes made today will be set in stone. Piers has come to ensure there aren't any.
Hi Sholto. Morning Piers.
You look like a man on a mission.
We're on a big mission today, yes. So.
Brand new concrete mixer too.
Yeah, cheaper to buy one than to rent, and you sell it on. So.
Yeah. What mix are you using in terms of ratio?
3 sand, 1 aggregate, 1 cement.
And any special aggregates or just bog standard?
Just bog standard peaching, which we have a pile of left over from something else.
Let's go and have a look.
Wow, look at these trusses. They look great. Hi, Marcus.
Hi, Piers, how are you?
Good, really well. Good to see you.
You too.
And looking good.
I know. This is amazing, isn't it?
So this is OSB formwork, but then on the inside, it looks like you've got large boards.
They're not large.
They're not
actually.
large.
No, because the texture of it was actually too smooth. So you got no relief in it, so you didn't get a pattern. So this is just
Cheap softwood.
cheap softwood that was lying around the site.
So this didn't cost you anything, you just had it.
Nothing cost me anything on here apart from
The reinforcement.
reinforcement.
With plasterboard in place and electrics well underway, the cost of the build has now reached £120,000, 5k over the contingency.
Bought units.
Yeah.
To keep the build going, Marcus and Sholto are having to spend savings never intended for the house.
Yeah, so that's for the whole.
Yeah.
They're using leftover materials and sourcing new ones very carefully. The kitchen unit carcasses to go inside the island cost just £16 each.
So you're going to make this, aren't you? And
Yeah.
I'm really longing to see the concrete go in. I'm not.
I'm sort of dreading it, but the first.
Because you only get one shot of it, don't you?
Yeah.
I did have one of these go wrong, I have to tell you now.
Oh, thank you for that, Piers.
So we had to break the whole thing out.
The ratio of cement to sand to aggregate, and critically water, affect how easy the concrete is to work with and its durability. Getting it wrong is disastrous. The first mix is too dry.
Might need to be a bit less aggregate.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
More water. Yeah.
The second batch appears to be better.
You want to just, it's that kind of amount.
Okay.
Without extra water, the aggregate won't sink, and it'll be hard to get a good finish on the top.
The bubbles in this are the air rising to the top. It's really important to get those out, otherwise you will get imperfections in the surface.
The worktops have been a good trial run, but the island is far more ambitious. And a huge test for Sholto's homemade formwork. It needs to hold over half a ton of concrete.
Yeah, you can see, looking along it, that that's bowing in the middle there. And actually what could happen, of course, is that it could just give, and you'd end up with a sea of concrete on the floor and no islands. So, are you confident it's going to work?
Yeah, I think we've assessed it as we've gone along, and to stop now, let this go off.
You're surprised how much concrete's gone in. Bloody hell.
Sorry, just the wood split down the bottom.
Oh yeah. I would leave it actually.
Yeah.
I wouldn't poke it.
No.
The formwork is under huge pressure from the concrete, and there's really no knowing if it'll hold.
Well, I can't wait to see it when the formwork's off and you finish this.
Not gonna.
With a lot more concrete to pour and then set, Sholto will have to wait a few days before he'll know if it's worked. Marcus and Sholto had a long search for a place they could settle down in and truly call home. Eventually they found a plot in the north of Scotland where Sholto could realise his dream of building his own house. It's been 8 months since the house kit arrived on site, and Piers and I are back to see if Sholto's managed to turn this home into something uniquely theirs.
Hey guys.
Hi guys.
How you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good to see you.
Sholto, how has it been? Because this is a hell of a lot of house to do yourself.
A fun process.
That was a long pause before fun. Was it really fun?
There were days when I was on a scaffold with snow coming across the roof trying to put up cladding, and the wind was taking me and the cladding with it.
So it's a blowy day, and I'm imagining you nailing every single one of these bits of wood to this house. Can we take a closer look? Because I'm dying to see it. Have a look at it. They had only a modest budget to complete such a large house, and were hit with several unexpected costs. Sholto's strategy was always finding ingenious ways to make the cash go further wherever he could.
Where you were clever, of course, is choosing a way of cladding your building that was something you could do yourself.
Absolutely saved, thousands. I thought I'd worked out my quantities pretty accurately. I didn't realise how accurately, and as I was doing, this was the final face.
Yeah.
I did my final cut, and then this was literally the only little waste.
You should be a quantity surveyor.
That is amazing, because usually you allow about 10% wastage. I mean, sometimes even up to 30%, and here you are with 0.05% wastage.
Well, you need to make it 0%. I'll find something to do with this.
We'll find something.
Good. But how has the inside turned out? This is amazing. I mean, what an extraordinary space, and totally unexpected from the outside. They had the courage to veer away from the conventions of a family home. They scrapped bedrooms and the hallway and created one magnificent living space, saving money on walls and doors in the process. Overhead, they finally committed the time and money to expose the trusses. Daylight floods the stunning full-height ceiling that came so close to being covered up.
I was more or less on board anyway. I didn't need any convincing as far as Greece was concerned. I loved the light coming through the windows.
It's a good start to the day, being bathed in sunlight.
You've taken a standard house, pretty much, and through a process of subtraction, you've ended up with something that's completely non-standard.
But it's like living in a loft space, isn't it?
Movable.
Yeah, and it's
movable.
and undefined.
I mean, the only thing that's fixed is that end.
The large space, which could have felt barn-like, is made homely thanks to clever design choices. Furnishings indicate different functions for different areas, but almost everything can be rearranged as needed. In the kitchen, triangular shelves were made for almost nothing from leftover scraps of timber and cleverly repeat the shapes of the roof trusses. And Sholto's window reveals also echoed the timber above. Having found plywood on special offer, he came up with an even cheaper solution than chunky timber.
I just went and ordered £120 worth of the sheets, brought them back here, ripped them down with a circular saw, put a mitre on the corner, and I think it's given it just something a bit different.
So £120 to do all of these windows
in the whole house.
That's amazing. What you've done here is to take very simple, very ordinary things and make them architectural, and that's really clever.
In another cost-saving design idea, light fittings are given a stylish twist, suspended from driftwood. The kitchen island was perhaps the element that allowed Sholto to truly express his creativity. How does this result feel to you?
The results,
Yeah.
end result, I'm happy with.
Right.
Getting to here.
Because I actually left as this was bulging and threatening to fall apart and flood the floor.
You left, it didn't fall apart. I was back here very early the next morning to check that I wasn't coming into chaos. A couple of days later, we did a second pour. The weight on top of that actually did push it back more, so the back of it, as you can see, you've got a slight overhang on it.
I mean, this thing feels amazingly permanent and durable. I mean, this will be here for generations, whereas usually in low-cost buildings, you have things that are so flimsy and fall apart as soon as you've moved in. Not this.
The island is a bargain. At a total cost of £131, it's around 85% cheaper than a mid-range manufactured island. And Sholto's created something very personal.
I instantly liked it because of what it was.
The way that you've made a kind of formwork with chamfered edges.
Yes.
This thing is totally unique, it's totally yours, and it adds to that feeling of how robust and warehouse-like this space is. Next to the kitchen, there's a generous utility room, and elsewhere in the house, bedrooms and bathrooms are taking shape. But there's still a lot to do. Sholto has worked his fingers to the bone on this build, and at times found it hard to handle Piers' input. So has it been worth it?
When you're building a house, you get yourself so immersed in it, you actually don't step back. But in the end, it's right to question, it's right to challenge design. And I think the experimentation that we've done has actually, it's worked.
My delight here is that you've taken risks, and in a way, you haven't quite known how they're going to turn out, but actually you've trusted that you would be able to get to the right outcome if you really persevered, and that's what you've done.
Marcus hasn't had an easy ride either, sometimes feeling excluded from decision-making. How does it feel to you to be finally in?
The fact that we did do it and we're still together, I mean, we even upgraded our civil partnership to a marriage only, 3-4 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We ultimately wanted to upgrade our civil partnership to marriage before we moved into the house because we just wanted everything perfect.
This couple has weathered the Scottish winter and some emotionally tough times. But how did their budget fare in the end?
Our initial budget was £100,000. We've brought the whole project in just under 130,000. We did a contingency in of 15,000. The roof came in quite a bit more than the quotes. The initial quote we had, the chaps never turned up to do it.
Electrical work also cost more than expected, and other unplanned expenses included the changes to the ceiling height and the switch from concrete to wooden flooring.
Spending the extra money, I think, was a much more interesting house, and it's exactly what we needed.
Marcus, tell me, was it hard sort of dealing with that overspend? I mean, it must have involved sacrifices?
It was a standing joke at work, for example, because for months I was going to work with my little lunchbox with just salad, crackers and cheese in there. But what people didn't realise was that's all we could afford to spend. But doing things like that, we've had to sacrifice on lots of things.
But it is worth it to know that we own our house, which is an immense, brilliant feeling.
And do you feel like this huge space you've created is in the service of the way you want to live?
Yes, it's exceeded all my expectations, to be perfectly honest.
I think perhaps what's best about this project is not that it's a piece of high architecture, but it has quite modest and humble beginnings. I mean, this is a kit house. This is the sort of house that most people buy off the peg and move into without questioning. But with a few key moves here that have been quite simple in some ways. Marcus and Sholto have transformed something that is really quite ordinary into something that is really quite beautiful.
Is it a proud achievement?
I'm very proud of it. I think it actually shows what you can do if you're willing to take a risk.
I mean, that's it. I mean, we are two ordinary people. There is nothing special about us at all. And you always hear, oh, if I can do it, then you can. But it's true. I didn't think we would get through it at times. But if you got the result, like Sholto said, and you go for it, you focus on it, I think anybody can do it, to be perfectly honest.
I'm really amazed by the space that Marcus and Sholto have been able to create here. It's big and generous and beautiful. I really love it. But in a way, this project is about so much more than that. It began years ago now when Marcus was really ill and Sholto and he decided together to build a house and have a very different life. It's led and motivated Sholto to drive every single nail into that house behind me as a kind of monument to their relationship. It's a really beautiful story, and what they've created is not a cookie-cutter house. It's a house that suits only them, that is made for their lives. Next time, Andrew and Claire dream of building a modern farmhouse.
Oh, look at that. 40 minutes to this stage.
But will they end up with a glorified mobile home?
It's really important that we all realise what we're building.
And in financial ruin.
We've got over £10,000 of credit cards now. It's something I feel very, very uncomfortable about.
Families facing fierce uncertainties and the chance for a new life next on BBC Two. Radical but delicate surgery with double lung transplants at Great Ormond Street next.